Hi everyone, and welcome back to Cardiac Radio for Teens. For those of you who may not know, I'm Bia, and Cardiac Radio for Teens is a place where teens can come together with other teens and learn about Spiritist teachings and topics in a way that's easier to understand and more relatable to our day-to-day lives. With a book such as this, such as the Spirits book that we've been going through week by week and breaking it down, it was written in the 1800s, so sometimes we can find that language and what's happening not as relatable to us today. So hopefully reading it together, we can make it more relatable to us now as teenagers. And I'm very excited to say that this is the 50th Cardiac Radio for Teens show that we're having, which is amazing how far we've come. It's almost been a full year of us having Cardiac Radio every single week continuously, and I'm really thankful for all those who helped me make this possible, and they all know who they are, and they're the backbones of this, and they help me to help make this possible, so I thank all of them. So let's get right to it. Last week we talked about a couple different topics. We talked about children after death, we talked about the gender of spirits, and we also talked about the spiritual connection between families, such as parents and ancestors with their kids. And this week, we're going to start off with a section called Physical and Moral Likeness. So this section starts off with question 207. Parents almost always transmit a physical likeness to their children. Do they also transmit a moral likeness? So the question is asking, everyone knows that our parents, the children look a lot like their parents. We look like a lot like our parents. But morally, is that, because that's a physical appearance. Oh, you have the same nose as your mom. Oh, you have the same eyes as your dad. You have the same hair as your mom. But moral qualities, like, oh, you're both kind, does that really transmit? And the Spirit said, no, because their soul or spirits are different. The body proceeds from the body, but the spirit does not proceed from the spirit. There is no link than blood kinship among descendants. So what they're saying here is that no, your moral qualities don't transfer. So just because someone has really great parents doesn't mean that they're going to be the best person, or vice versa. Maybe they don't have the best parents, but they could be a really good person. So it's not like that, because like they were saying, the body gets features from the body, like in our DNA. But our spirit, it doesn't have that type of DNA. We're not our spirit didn't come from our parents' spirits. We were two separate spirits already to begin with. So besides blood, physical blood, there isn't like a spiritual connection that we came from a different spirit. So what's important to see here is that although we may physically look like our parents, we're not always morally at the same level. And then there's the second part to this question, and it says, where does the moral likeness that sometimes exists between parents and children come from? So they're saying, okay, but then why are some people really similar? So even though the moral qualities aren't going directly from your parents, how come sometimes they're really similar? And the Spirit said, they are sympathetic spirits, attracted by similarities of inclination. And they put a little footnote, and sympathetic in what they're talking about means in harmony with one's taste, mood, or disposition. So what they're saying here is that we tend to get spirits who are on the same level as us. If we are more morally evolved, we tend to connect and vibe with spirits who are also at that same level. It's like a radio frequency. You have to have the same radio frequency. You have to have the same wavelength to get that radio frequency. If it's two different wavelengths, they're not going to be able to come together. So that's why we're usually attracted by people who are similar to us. So that's why sometimes it might be really similar, because oh, me and my mom have this same quality, because maybe we were attracted together because of that quality. So it's not that it comes directly from the person, but we both have that quality, and that kind of connected us. Question 208. Don't the spirits of the parents exert an influence on their children after birth? So they're saying, okay, but sure, we don't get exactly the qualities from our parents, like our hair color, but doesn't our parents like influence us as children? And the Spirit said, yes, a great deal of influence, because we have already said spirits should aid in one another's progress. As it is, the spirit of the parents have the mission of developing their child through education. This is a task for them. If they fail to perform it, they will be guilty. So yes, parents do have this influence, because part of their mission as being parents, when they were in the spirit world and they were planning out what they were going to have to accomplish, part of their mission was becoming a parent and helping that spirit educate itself. So even though we're separate spirits and maybe we weren't part of a family before in previous lives, this life was their mission is to help us grow. So they do have a lot of influence, and if they fail, if they're a bad influence, then they're guilty of it, and they're gonna have to keep doing that until they can finally overcome that. Question 209. Why is it that good and virtuous parents sometimes have wicked children? In other words, why don't the good qualities of the parents always, out of affinity, attract good spirits as their children? So they're saying, okay, if people connect with like we were saying, the qualities, if you have this quality, you're more likely to attract to someone who has that quality. So why don't really good parents, why don't they attract really good children or spirits to be as their children? Why do some really good people have some wicked children? And the spirits answered, wicked spirits may ask for good parents in the hopes that their counsel will guide them along a better path. God often grants their wishes. So what they're saying is that these wicked spirits, they want to get better. They want to improve. They want to keep going on their way to perfection. But it's much harder for a wicked child to have wicked parents, because then the parents aren't really helping them learn. When they have good parents and a wicked child, then those good parents can really assist the child. So they say when spirits want that, a lot of the time God lets them have better parents, so that the parents can help them through. Question 210. Through their thought and prayers, can parents attract a good spirit instead of an imperfect one to indwell the body of their child? The Spirit said, no. They can, however, improve the spirit of the child to whom they have given birth, and whom has been entrusted to them. It is their duty. Ill-natured children are a trial for their parents. So what they're saying is, the question is, if you think about it enough and you pray enough to have good kids, will that work? Will it work just praying to have good kids? And they say that no, that won't work. But that doesn't mean that they're gonna be bad children. Once the child is born, the parent can help raise that child well and get them out of those tendencies, so they can become better. And also, when these children are really wicked and all that they were mentioning, it's more of a trial for the parents. The parents are supposed to help that child and help them get out of that and get onto a better path. So it's not just the wicked children needing to learn from the parents, but the parents also need to learn with that experience. Question 211. Where does the likeness of character come from which so often exists among siblings, especially between twins? The spirits answered, they are sympathetic spirits who are attracted by similar sentiment and who are happy to be together. So again, that's what we were saying, just like how with the relationship between parents and children, most of the time it's sympathetic. It's you get kind of the same vibe. You guys are feeling the same thing. You're kind of in the same moral likeness, like we were talking about. And that's the same thing that happens with siblings. And they're saying, especially twins, who we see that most twins, they're really close together because they grow up together and they have a lot of these similarities. Question 212. In children whose bodies were born joined and who have some of their organs in common, are there two spirits, that is, two souls? And the spirit said, yes, but their resemblance often makes them seem to you as if there is only one. So the question is, when in these cases we see a lot about these Siamese twins, it was twins and they were supposed to be two different people, but it kind of stopped halfway. So they're kind of two different people stuck together. And sometimes it's just stuck together a little bit on the side, or sometimes it can be they completely share half their body. So there's a lot of different cases of that, and like we said before in the beginning, it's hard to specify specifically because each case is its own individual case. But for this, when that happens, there are two spirits. It's not, although it may seem like there's only one spirit, it is two spirits there. Question 213. But if spirits incarnate as twins out of sympathy, where does the aversion come from that some may be noted between them? And the spirits answered, it is not a rule that twins must be sympathetic spirits. Evil spirits may desire to struggle together on a stage of life. So just because, like we were saying before, how you can't say, oh, it's always going to be this or it's always going to be this. Every case is its own case. So sometimes twins get along really well because they were really sympathetic, like we were saying, that they're in the same frequency and harmony together. So they were really sympathetic. Or they may be two evil spirits, or maybe they were enemies in a past life and now they need to have this to try and fix their relationship, but still they're not going to be the bestest of friends just because they're siblings. So it's not for every case that they are going to be best friends. Question 214. What are we to think of the stories of children fighting in the mother's womb? The spirit said, a figure of speech. In order to portray their hatred as in grain, it is figuratively set before birth. Humans usually do not make sufficient allowance for images that are intended to be merely poetic. So they're saying like stories of children who, when it was like twins or multiple children at the same time in the mother's womb, that they would fight each other. And the spirit said that that's kind of nonsense, it's just poetic. It's just something we say, but that's not really true. And like they said, it's a figure of speech. Question 215. Where does the distinctive character that we observe in each culture come from? The spirits answered, like humans, spirits also form families through similarities in tendencies. The purity of such tendencies depend on how evolved the spirits are. Additionally, cultures are large families where sympathetic spirits congregate, and the tendencies that lead members to these families to congregate is the source of individual likeness that exists within distinct character of each culture. Do you think that good and humane spirits will seek to live among unrefined and cruel people? No. Spirits are attracted to like-minded cultures, just as they are attracted to like-minded individuals. They look for their own group. So, just like how we are attracted to people because of our similarities, our moral similarities, that also happens in cultures, in big groups. Think about it, just like religions. Religions, they're groups of people together because these people have the same belief. They're thinking the same way, so they come together to better study what they're understanding. Like us, teenage spiritists. We come together because we all are understanding the same thing and we all want to learn about the same concept. We have this similarity, so we come together. So that's what happens in all cultures. It's groups of people that think the same way, so they come together. Just like any club at school, we can talk about little organizations like a school club, school sports. If everyone in that sports team, it's because you like that sport, so you're being drawn together. Or it can be big, like maybe living in New York. Everyone likes to live in New York, so we're in that kind of culture. So it can be a number of different ways, but it's due to our similarities that draw us together. 216. In their new lives, do individuals retain any traces of their moral character from former ones? The spirits answered, yes, that can happen. However, as spirits evolve, they change, and their social position may change as well. If a master becomes a slave, his taste will be very different, and it will be difficult for you to recognize him. Since a spirit is the same spirit in its various incarnations, it manifests can have certain likenesses from one to the next. However, these will be modified through the customs of its new position, until a notable improvement has completely changed its characteristic. For example, the one who was proud and cruel can become humble and humane if it has repented. So they're saying, do we retain any of our moral characters from our past life? And they're saying that, yeah, that can happen. But as we evolve, like once we're always talking about these trials that we have to pass. So once we say we aren't patient at all in this life, and slowly over a few reincarnations, we become very patient. So we won't be tracing over that bad impatience, but we'll be tracing over that good patience, and we'll keep working on it and those qualities. So as we change, and also our social position changes, like they were saying here, if a master becomes a slave, it's not going to seem, their moral characteristics aren't going to be as visible to notice, to be, oh wow, they have a lot of the same traits. It'll be pretty different because there's a master and then there's a slave, and they obviously think very differently. But we do carry traces into our next incarnation. Question 217. During their different incarnations, do individuals retain any vestige of their physical character from previous lives? So the question is asking, so from incarnation to incarnation, do we have any of the same physical characters? And the spirits answered, the body is destroyed, and the new one has no connection with the old. Nevertheless, the spirit is reflected in the body. Although the body is only matter, it is molded by the spirit's qualities, which impress it with a certain character that is mainly visible in the face. For this reason, the eyes have been rightly described as the mirror to the soul, which means that the face most particularly reflects the soul. Thus, it may be that individuals who are extremely unattractive physically can nevertheless project something pleasant if they are good, mindful, and human-spirited. On the other hand, there are very attractive faces that awaken nothing in you. You might even find them repulsive. How can you believe that one perfect body houses high-order spirits where every day you encounter moral individuals with deformed bodies? Although there may be no pronounced physical likeness, a similarity of taste and tendencies can still pass on, what we call an air of familiarity. So that was a lot, so let's break it down. So, can we bring any physical characteristics? And we're not going to look exactly the same, if that's what we're trying to say. So, like they said, the body, it's destroyed. When our physical body dies, it dies, and that's it. And it's not connected at all to our new one. So, and that's because just like how we go from being a boy to a girl in reincarnation. So, obviously our physical characters aren't going to be very similar if we're going from boy to girl. And also our bodies can change skin colors, like we said. Like maybe we are tanner in this life, or we are whiter in the last. So our skin color, so that's another physical character that we know, of course, that can change. So what they're saying is, but the spirit can kind of reflect the body. So like our eyes, they're saying our eyes is the way it's the mirror into our soul, because that's kind of the thing that your spirit can kind of control in a way. But that's one thing that may look the same, like someone who is very angry all the time. They have an angry type of stare, and you can see it just in their face. They look angry all the time. Or someone who's always stressed, you can see it in their face, they look stressed. Or someone who is maybe more evolved and they're happier and they're more at peace, you can also see that in their face. So they're saying that a face is sort of a way to see their, like, who they actually are, who their spirit is, but physical characteristics aren't exactly gonna go into each body. But also, how we're saying is that with the spirit, though, the spirit is not changed. The spirit is one spirit. So maybe if you like a certain style of clothes, maybe in the next reincarnation you'll still like that certain style of clothes, so you'll still wear it, so it'll look like you have some physical similarities, but it's not directly physical. It's your spirit impacting the physical body. And then Allan Kardec put his own comment in, and he says, "The body that clothes the soul in a new reincarnation does not necessarily have any relation to the previous one, since it can proceed from a very different origin. It would therefore be absurd to conclude that any successive of lives is connected by a likeness that is strictly fortuitous. Nevertheless, a spirit's quality almost always modifies the organs that serve for its manifestation, impressing a distinctive stamp on the face, and even on the general manner. Thus, inside the humblest envelope one might find expressions of greatness and nobility of spirit, while under the garments of a wealthy person one can often find vulgarity and dishonest. Some persons who have risen from the lowest positions acquire the habits and manners of high society with hardly any effort. They seem to have returned to their rightful element. But others, in spite of their birth and education, always feel out of place. How can this fact be explained, except as a reflection of what our spirit was in former lives?" So here again, he's just going on explaining more to us that our body, it's a different body. Like they said, it's the clothes of the soul. So we kind of changed clothes. So we had one clothes on and then we changed it. But as we all know, everyone has our style. So your clothes, not that you're wearing the same clothes, but your clothes look similar. You're not going to change from a sunflower dress to all black clothes. So you're still going to have a style. Maybe you're going to have another dress that has pink flowers on it. So it's similar, but not exactly the same. But who you are inside, that does kind of have a little bit of effect. You're not going to change your clothes drastically. You're still going to have some of your personality showing through. Since this is the 50th Kardec Radio for Teens, I'd like to read 2 daily messages. And I won't tell you the one that's not for today, but I'm going to read that one first. And it's titled, Doing More. Do a little more each day than you think you can possibly do. Even during our busiest days, there's usually a little more we can do. We can get up a bit earlier or stay up a little later. We can pay less attention to distractions and more attention to things that really matter. We can, in short, be more careful about how we spend our time. It feels good to get the end of the day and realize that we've accomplished more than we set out to do. We go to bed satisfied and wake up ready to do even more the next day. I know I can do more today, and every day I will push myself a little, and I will be glad that I did. And I chose this message because in the beginning, when I was first starting this Kardec Radio for Teens, it was kind of crazy for me, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna make this commitment to do this every single week. But it's just like that. You do more. You know that you can work your time better, that instead of relaxing and watching a TV, I can study and I can do this because it does matter. And because I do this, I'm ready to do more stuff. It doesn't make me more tired, it makes me more awake. And I just wanted to share that with everyone. And also, I'd like to read, of course, the daily message for today's date, March 28th. High aspirations. Far away, there is the sunshine. In the sunshine are my highest aspirations. I may not reach them, but I can look up and see their beauty, believe in them, and try to follow them. We set simple goals for what we need to do today or this week, writing them on a to-do list. Buy groceries, pick up the dry cleaning, and wash the car. It feels good to accomplish these things, but they aren't the kind of goals by which we hope to define our legacy. Our long-term goals should reflect our highest aspirations, goals that we can reach only if we stretch ourselves to do the best we can and be the best that we can be. I will write down my long-term goals and put the list where I can see it easily to remind me of what I hope to accomplish in my life. I'm Bia. Thank you all for listening. This has been Kardec Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.